Hello there, welcome. I have a scrapbook layout to share with you today, and I've got a bunch of fun pictures here from a trip to Mexico, and I'm using this sketch. My upline Cindy Jackson is hosting our April sketch challenge for our team, and this is the sketch she designed. So I did print my photos out to fit that sketch, and as I mentioned, this is our trip to Mexico. I recently scrapbooked where we were in a closed cenote, like a cave. Well, this is an open cenote, so the top of it's open, and it was very just jungly, and there's vines hanging all around. So this is my husband and I with the water there in the background, and he's jumping off into the water, and it's hard to judge the distance from the photos, but it was high up enough to where it took me a bit to get my courage up to jump. They had these swings, and there was like a zip line into the water, just a really fun thing to experience. So here I am plummeting down, and the photographer caught this shot just before hitting the water, and there I am leaping off of the platform, and then just some of my friends that I was there with on the zip line and also jumping in. So like I said, I did print those to fit the sketch, and for my paper collections I have two of them here. I've got Otterly Adorable and Woven Textures. When I bought this for my Otter Adventure River photos, I never anticipated it being so perfect for, tropical photos like these. So this just has like that jungly look to it, and I think it's going to be fun to mix in some of these woven textures. And I think I'm liking this one here. There's so many to choose from. I want to save some of the burlap. You get 3 sheets of each. So I have some masculine layouts, kind of like country type layouts of my son working with horses that I want to use the burlap with. But I think this will be fun mixed with these. And then the other side of this is water paper. And I think I have enough scraps in here. I've made a ton of layouts with this. I actually just ordered a second pack of this. But yeah, I've got some water strip papers. So let me grab my Versamats and we will get started on this layout. Now I think I am going to build this on white daisy cardstock because I want to do, maybe I'm thinking of some ink smooshing to create like some water splatter look in the background. And I think that will be a fun addition to this layout. So on the sketch I'm going to just try out some papers to see if I'm happy with it before cutting into them. So if you look at the sketch, they have a pattern or a cardstock, whatever paper you choose going behind the photos there, and then some decorative layered strips across the bottom, and then 3 points of interest with the embellishments and the titles here. But I think I'm going to put my title on the left hand side. That's just more my style, and that's the fun thing about sketches is you can totally do that. So for my decorative piece, I really want to use this because it brings in all of those fun colors. Let me grab my photos here. But it has that jungly look, which really captures the vibe of what this was like. So let me set my photos out according to the sketch here. I may need to bump that one. Actually, I think they kind of hang off. So something like that. This one goes here. And then I'm thinking about this as a strip across the bottom. So then this one will go here according to the sketch. And then they're kind of overlapped. And then we have our 2 3x3 photos kind of collaging over here. So I think that'll be fun. So I like this one. This is not as busy. We've got some visual texture and some color and interest, but it's not overwhelming the photos. And I think this will be a nice little strip across the bottom. So I'm kind of bothered that the water's going that way. I feel like it needs to go that way. So I may need to cut into other strips, but we could use that. Again, I'm just trying it before committing. And then maybe bringing in the Peacock for my darker strips. So there's this one, and maybe we could use that as a transition piece. I'm not following the sketch measurements exactly. I'm more of a visual scrapbooker anyway. I could just kind of look at it and, make it work for me. I really like that. Just imagine this as a skinnier strip there. I think that's going to be good. Okay, I'm going to go for it and cut these pieces down. And I will be right back. I am really loving all of these sketch challenges. They're just so fun to quickly get another layout down. So I've got my pieces cut here. We'll just lay these out, and then you'll notice on the sketch she has the corners rounded. So I thought, why not? I haven't used my corner rounder in a bit, so we'll get those outside corners rounded. I believe this is a Recollections punch from Michaels, and it's nice because it has multiple different angles of corners. And you know what I'm doing right here? I just realized that my piece of papers are reversed. And now I have that inside corner cut. Whoops, let's go ahead and get the outside corners cut. Sorry, I'm off screen. There's a way to fix this. So you could just have the inside corner rounded, but I don't know if I really want that. So we're actually going to just trim these pieces a tad shorter. It's not going to make a difference in the overall layout, the finalized layout design, having these strips just a ½ inch shorter. But I need to make the top match the bottom. So I'm just double checking to see how much I took off, and we will trim up all the pieces and then round the correct corner on the outside edge, and no one will ever know. It's funny, some people don't like rounded corners, and that's fine. You could always skip that part. So let's bring in our paper strips. I don't have enough of the water paper, so I'm going to piece in some scraps and make it work. I'll be tucking, sections behind the photos so it will look like one seamless piece going all the way across. I've got the water paper and then a strip of the Peacock. I'm just bumping these up so everything fits, and then we'll just finish off the transition between the two pattern papers with this beautiful, pretty peacock color. I have a fun idea I want to do in the white space on the background cardstock to make that more interesting and tie in with the activity that we're doing in the actual photos. So I want to dry fit everything first just to get my placement, and then we can start that background treatment. Oops, that paper's upside down. We need our trees going the right way here. So you're probably wondering why there's little bits missing from the water paper. That's because there's otters on the other side that I fussy cut out for embellishments. I need to bring my photos back in for the placement that will also, affect where I put the treatment on the background. And I'll fill in that little missing spot of the water paper later in the video. So let's just get these situated. I want them on an even line all the way across the top there. But I kind of want those two horizontal photos resting just above that blue paper. So I'm going to scoot that down a bit, and then we'll bring these little guys back in. Since these photos are all about jumping into the water, we're making a lot of splashing, obviously. I thought it'd be fun to take Pool Party ink and a piece of acetate and create a water splash effect. So with a pencil, I'm creating a couple tick marks around these photos so I know where they are, and I can make sure that the ink splatter extends beyond the photos. Smush a little ink onto a wipeable surface. I've got my all-purpose mat here, and then we'll give it a couple spritz of water. I tested it out just a bit to see how the color looks, and I'm happy with that. So this is actually a piece of packaging left over from some bling. So I've just slipped my hand inside, and we're patting it down into the ink and water mixture. And then I'll scoot all of my pieces out of the way and literally just smoosh it down to your layout to create this fun splatter look. So I just needed it to come down a little bit more. And I'm going to just bring my pieces back in to make sure I'm happy with the way that looks. And I think that's going to be pretty fun. Let's go ahead and repeat that process on the right-hand side of the page. This is regular cardstock, so it can take a little bit of water. You don't necessarily have to treat it with any gesso or anything like that. I'm just taking my ink and water mixture and going direct to my white Willow cardstock. So again, we're just going to press down, kind of patting it around. You probably can't see my pencil marks there, but I am just paying attention to where those pencil marks are and making sure I extend beyond that. So you can just keep repeating the process until you get the desired effect. And like I said, I like to bring my photos back in and just check periodically to make sure I'm happy with it, because You can always add more, but you can't take it away, right? I think that's looking good. So we'll clean up our all-purpose mat here. If you have a glass mat, that's perfect for this type of technique as well. Just something that you can clean up easily. Let me bring these back into frame, and I do want to add just a little bit of ink blending. So I have pecan pie ink, which will match the tones in this woven textures paper perfectly. My husband and I aren't really ones for sitting around on the beach, relaxing all the time, so we were really grateful for all of these fun excursions they arranged. You could just, sign up and you show up and then they do the rest, and it was really, really fun. We're all about the adventure. We could do a little bit of relaxing on the beach, of course, but this was a fun way to spend the day. I do have some zip lining photos I'll be scrapbooking soon as well. How about you? When you're on a tropical vacation, do you want to sit on the beach all day, every day, read a good book? Or are you more like a go, go, go type of person? Maybe a little bit of both, Sometimes it's nice to go on an excursion in the morning and then maybe relax on the beach in the afternoon. So just a little bit more ink blending here, and then I will go ahead and get all of these base pieces adhered down. I went ahead and trimmed up my little water paper strips, so I know we have a chunk missing. That'll be hidden behind the photo. So we're just bringing all of these back in. Again, I'm just paying attention to making sure those are level across the top, and then this one will hide that chunk missing from the paper. That looks good. This one goes right about here, and then maybe a little bit higher, and then this one over here. I was digging through my stamps and found this one. It's called Gnomes for Summer. And this was from Close to My Heart, but actually released by Stampin' Up. And it says Splish Splash. So I thought that would be a perfect title for this particular layout. So I have some Calypso Coral ink here, and then we will just ink this up and stamp it onto white cardstock here. Let's go ahead and do that one more time so it's nice and crisp. So I have a very kind of neutral color palette in the photo, so I thought we could bring in some orange to, add some vibrancy to this layout. I will go ahead and fussy cut that out off camera, and we could put it up here, but I actually quite like this spot in the photos. So I went ahead and also stamped it in Melon Mambo because I started thinking about my embellishments, and I don't necessarily want to bring in the Calypso Coral. I've got the Happy Hibiscus stamp set here, and this is a really cool layering stamp. So we're going to make some embellishments, and you have the outline hibiscus, or the outline of the hibiscus, and then the filler stamps. And I want it to be a little bit varied in color. So let's peel this off, line it up on our white cardstock, pick it up with the Misty Door, and this is the outline. So we're going to go with Melon Mambo, which is the same color as the title over there. There's actually a coordinating embossing folder with this too, so you could have stamped and embossed texture if you wanted to, or just use the embossing or just the stamping. I really appreciate all of the different ways you can mix it together to get different looks. So I want to create a bunch of these. So rather than switching the stamps back and forth, we'll go ahead and stamp the outline, and then we can switch to the filler stamp and then just put our outlines back in place. That's the beauty of using a stamping platform like this. If you're making multiples, it's definitely a little bit faster. I think that's a good place to start. So we can gently remove this from our Misty Door, and then let me put it back on the carrier sheet. The outline stamp is like one stamp. It stamps all three at once, and then the filler stamps are separate. So if you wanted to do different colors, you could easily do that. I am going to line them all up and then stamp them at once. So again, we use Melon Mambo for the outline, and I want a lighter tone for the inside. So I have, let's go ahead and pick those up. I've got Flirty Flamingo ink. I thought that would be a fun pink. Even though there's no hibiscus flowers in the photos, it definitely captures that tropical vibe, and they always seem to work for tropical themed layouts. So I think that's a good color combination. I think that looks pretty good. It will, of course, lighten as it dries, but again, that's Melon Mambo and Flirty Flamingos. So let's try another combination as well. So we have, let me clean this off because I'm switching inks. So I just want to wipe up any ink on this stamp with a stamp chamois. And now I have Pretty in Pink, which is even lighter. So that Flirty Flamingo might been just a titch more orange. And I want to go more with the pinks. So let's see here. It's nice that you can kind of just change the color around, right? Let's ink that up one more time since this is a lighter color. And then we can see which one we like better. It's subtle, but I think I'm going to go with the Pretty in Pink. So I went ahead and made a whole bunch of those, and I'm going to cut these out with the coordinating die. So you can see how you cut all 3 of those at once, which makes it nice and quick. I still have a long ways to go on this album, but I will do a complete album flip through when I have completed the entire vacation. I'm making good progress, so we're getting closer. So I think I want to have an embellishment cluster maybe there, and then one here. So you'll notice I'm starting with the largest flower first. It's always easier to start with the largest element and then work down to the smaller ones. So maybe let's pile these, a smaller one here. We don't have as much room on top, so maybe we'll just use the 2 smaller florals. And then I think I want this down attached to the title. I think the placement of those is looking nicely, so now we can just kind of, expand on those embellishment clusters. So I like to frame in the photo, kind of framing in that backwards L shape. And then I did go ahead and cut a ton of tropical leaves using a leaf stamp from my stash. This is from Close to My Heart, but the fern is from a paper pumpkin die. So if you're a paper pumpkin subscriber, you can get those bonus die sets that they put out every 3 months. They coordinate with the paper pumpkin cards, but this fern made it a must-have for me. I love ferns. So we are going to just tuck these leaves in and around the flowers. I did cut them out in a couple different shades of green because, when you're in the jungle, you see all sorts of different colors of green, and there's different greens in my pattern paper too. Embellishing is always my favorite part. So you just get to play around with these florals until they fall into place and everything looks nice. I like to add more word elements to my layouts, so I have quite a bit of stamp sets that are travel themed or tropical themed. So since I organized by category, I am going to thumb through both of those, tropical and travel, to see if there's anything that inspires me. I found this stamp set and I love this one, Going to My Happy Place. I believe that stamp set's called No Worries. It's an oldie but a goodie from Close to My Heart. So I have Lagoon ink because Lagoon is a featured color in this paper collection. So let's go ahead and stamp this on some white cardstock, and then we can cut it out with a circle die. So I just went through my circle stash. I have a bunch of circle dies. I found one that was the appropriate size, and we can add that to the top of our cluster there. I love it. I'm ready to go ahead and adhere everything down. I just put a little bit of glue on the base of my sprigs, and I'm working from the bottom up. So we'll just tuck those under, and then again, you just work from the bottom, gluing things down. And then last but not least, I will adhere the flowers down. Some of these I'm going to add a little bit of foam tape, otherwise they'll be adhered directly to the layout. I still need to add my story. I've got room under those 2 center photos, but I don't really want to cover up all that pretty pattern paper. So I went ahead and printed that out on vellum so we can see the pattern through, and I think that looks great. We'll put that right there. Let's bring the sketch challenge back in and just see the differences here. So I took the title from this area and moved it down to this spot here because that just fit perfectly. And I kept the embellishment cluster there. This one I dropped down just a bit because I wanted more room for more embellishments. And then she had the, journaling up in this area, and I moved it down to this area here. But yeah, this is a great sketch, and I love the photo layout here. Ink smooshing is so fun for water layouts, and I've done some like that with mud, if you're doing a mud run or boys playing in the mud, different things like that, or just an interesting background for mixed media type background. You can see around each of the clusters I added some of those pink little clear dots. Those are from the Ocean Friends collection, and there's like oranges, pinks, and green, great for these tropical layouts. You can find all of the supplies available listed in the description box below. And if you're looking for more inspiration, YouTube thinks you should watch this video right here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you very soon.